I believe hand on heart that this is the best deal in tech right now, and I'm going to explain why in this video. In a time where the highest end smartphones cost four figures, it's refreshing to get a crazy value item on the market, and in many ways, the Galaxy S23 Ultra is better than the phone it replaced. And at the same time, you can pick one up for half the price on the second-hand market. This is unreal value, so let's dive in. But before that, guys, I'm really trying to hit that 100k mark, so if you could subscribe, that would genuinely mean the world to me. £550 is the average asking price on eBay for a used base model, which gets you a pretty respectable £250 of storage and a phone in decent but not perfect condition. That's mid-range pricing by today's standards for a brand new phone, and the phone's hardly been out for like 18 months at this point, with software support taking it all the way to 2028 with 3 more major platform upgrades and a further year of security patches. So if you buy one now, you're still golden for like another 3 or 4 years, which is more than a lot of mid-range phones will give you brand new right now. One of the key ways the S23 Ultra is better than the new model is in the camera department actually. This phone actually has a better long-range zoom camera on it, so if you're reaching past 10 times, say 30 or 50 times zoom, this will actually get you sharper images than the 24 Ultra. And in all other areas, the differences between the two is so marginal that you're essentially getting 2024 camera performance for the cost of last year's model on the second-hand market. And the S23 Ultra's camera package as a whole is absolutely phenomenal. Whether you shoot manual, automatic, RAW, standard JPEGs, the quality from these shooters is unmatched for the price. And you can quote me on that, by the way. By default, the S23 Ultra bins its images down to 12 megapixels, which is the way it really should be done in my opinion. I know there are people out there that really want to switch it to the 200 megapixel mode, but this results in worse dynamic range, colors, and low light performance. So it really just isn't worth it to switch, in my opinion, despite the huge number. Video also isn't a weak point on this phone. It's Ultra HD, 4K, 60p or 30p looks incredible. Samsung stabilization is one of the better setups I've seen in any phone, and footage comes out looking really smooth. Sure, you can switch it to 8K if you really want to, but I wouldn't bother as it just takes up more room, takes more processing power, and technically doesn't have quite as good dynamic range. It's also not heaped sharper than the Ultra HD footage. And you miss out on the excellent stabilization and versatile lens options. So just stick to Ultra HD. Something people don't realize about these phones, or maybe they just don't remember after they buy them, is that you can plug in a USB hub like this cheap Rhino Shield that I have here and turn your phone into a little desktop computer. It doesn't just enlarge the phone screen, it has its own desktop interface, and you can genuinely get work done on it. It's called DeX, it's been around for a while, and honestly, it's incredibly slept on. Many often forget this feature even exists, and many Ultra Samsungs also double as a mini desktop computer, adding even more value. Also, you might like the crazy flat sides of the S24 Ultra and the flat panel, which, to be fair, is probably functionally better, but the sleek curves not only make the S24 Ultra look nicer, more modern, cleaner and higher end, but they also make the phone easier to hold. People see images and videos online of phones with these flat sides and love the designs, but often forget about usability and how nice they are to hold. We all spent 5 years complaining about curved screen size, not realizing that they were the way forward in the first place. And the S23 Ultras are more subtle than what you'll find on a lot of other phones out there, and Samsung's accidental touch rejection is fantastic, so never run into phantom touches or anything like that. And the screen itself, as you might all probably know, is absolutely gorgeous. Better than most people's TVs, including my own, thanks to that high refresh rate AMOLED that delivers inky blacks, beautiful, vibrant color, and though not as bright as the new phone, it does get very, very bright. So not only looks stunning in HDR at max brightness, but also is easily read outdoors. It might be a year and a half old, but this panel still shines and will blow everything in the mid-range class away. Samsung does screens the best, and this is the most obvious when you go to play games and the colors really pop on the big panel. It means that the screen controls aren't overcrowding the display because there's just so much of it that you've got plenty of room. And importantly, you can actually see what you're doing. Thankfully, all Samsung's S23 Ultra SKUs came with Qualcomm processors and not the Exynos version. So the now 1 generation old Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 is still really quick, zipping around your favorite apps, but also in those games I mentioned earlier, where the mid-range chips can really start to stutter in high-end 3D titles like Real Racing, Genshin Impact, and one of my favorites, Project Off-Road. Great little game that, and some decently realistic physics. But yeah, there's no real need to worry about performance with this thing, and thanks to that particularly quick SoC, it shouldn't slow down as quickly as some of the mid-rangers start to do after sort of 6 to 9 months. Annoyingly, these never came with a charger in the box, but they do support 45 wired and 15 watt wireless charging. I'd stick to using a cable, as I'm a little bit old school like that, I never really use wireless charging, but you can pick up those combo chargers pretty cheap that do the PD 3.0 like the phone does, and then they'll usually come with enough ports that you can charge like a watch or earbuds at the same time, and I have one of those here. They're really useful, and it means you can use it on your next phone as well, so I recommend picking one of those up. Battery life is really good on my unit despite having used it a fair amount. It's a pretty large 5k mAh battery anyway, so this is to be expected. But also the software does a decent job of keeping background activity low so that you don't have to worry about it dying on you midway through the day. Though I will say if you're buying second hand, your mileage is almost definitely going to vary, depending on just how much the previous user abused their phone day to day. But despite having a large battery inside it, there's still room for the coveted S Pen. Look, I know not everyone is going to use this, and I know S Ultra and Note owners who haven't taken the S Pen out of their phone since the day they bought it. But if you're in a job where taking a photo and drawing up a quick diagram would make your life easier, then this phone is great to have on you. It takes up no more room because it just stows away in the phone and unlocks an incredibly useful tool for makers and tinkerers. I've also had to sign like NDAs and stuff whilst out on the go, and having that little pen to do it is just so much easier than fat fingering the screen. It's just terrific. I haven't had any connectivity, speed or stability issues on my unit. The ultrasonic in-display fingerprint scanner is still pretty good, pretty accurate. It's not the best in the world, but it is pretty decent. The speakers get loud and clear, and all the buttons still feel crisp as when I first got the phone. Also, where the other curved screens, like I said before, like the OnePlus 12 My Daily, have caused me trouble triggering phantom touches with accidental palm rejection and stuff, this hasn't had the same problems and is actually a lot easier to use without clicking something by accident. The S23 Ultra isn't going to be for everyone, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's absolutely huge, so it can be a bit unwieldy at times, especially when you put a case on it. It just becomes like a tablet to carry around. And the price might still be a little difficult to stomach for some people because they're not going to spend more than £200 to £300 on a phone, which is fair enough, I guess. But for under £600, you really are getting an unreal level of quality and features. For what is now an upper mid-range price, you get an S Pen, DeX, crazy cameras, a still S-tier screen, all-day battery life with half-decent fast charging, and performance and software that will keep you going for another 3 or 4 years with no dramas. I genuinely believe this to be the best deal in tech. Why spend 1,300 quid when you can spend less than half and have 90% of the phone?